Hello and welcome to our brand new weekly show, Imperial Cantina. I'm your host, Jackson Daleen.
I don't know what that was, but I'm Braydon Leadbetter.
I'm trying to do stuff with the intros. welcome to our weekly show, guys. This is our little branch off Imperial Cantina, our guest talking show. Today we're going to be talking about Attack of the Clones, and we have our special guest today, Alan Szerszan. Alan, I went to high school with. Alan, how are you today?
I'm good. How are you guys?
We're hanging out. So, we'll just kind of get right into this and get to know how. I didn't know Alan was a big Star Wars fan until doing this podcast. So we're gonna kind of get into you and figure out what you know and like about the Star Wars. So I guess just going off, what do you watch, read, play, anything Star Wars now? What's your current Star Wars routine?
All right. So I want to start off and tell you guys, you're going to be mad. I have not finished Clone Wars, but lately what I've been on,
I'm in the same boat. I have not finished Clone Wars either.
I remember the first episode I listened to, I was like, all right, he hasn't finished it either. I feel a little better, but I'm actually on Rebels right now, and I'm loving Rebels.
Oh, it's so more
than I even like
Rebels
Clone Wars. I think I'm about halfway through season 3, so it's getting good.
It gets so good.
You're getting close then, yeah.
Yeah, Thrawn just got introduced to all that stuff, so I'm real excited. And then I'm also replaying Fallen Order, which I'm loving.
I need to do that.
Is this your first time replaying it, or?
Yeah, it's my first replay. I played it when it first came out and beat it in probably a week. So this is my first time replaying it.
I had to play on Explore mode because I'm so bad at video games.
Yeah, no, I'm the same way, bro. I wasn't gonna say it, but me too.
See, I think I 100%ed on my first playthrough. For me,
yeah, dude, I couldn't 100% it even the first time. That's why I guess I just restarted because I was so defeated by the first time. So
it's a difficult game too. It has its moments. I'm not good at those styles of fighting games like that.
Yeah,
hack and slash for me.
That's why I had to go down to that easy difficulty.
Alan, what was your introduction to Star Wars? How was it introduced into your life and kind of affected you?
So this is actually the perfect movie to start on because my brother probably introduced me to the prequels when I was when they were coming out. We were little kids, so that's what I started on was Phantom Menace and this, and then Revenge of the Sith with Revenge of the Sith. I'm tripping. That was the first one I saw in theaters ever, which was real traumatizing for a little kid like me. So, but yeah, I started off on the prequels, and my little brother, shout out to him, he got me started on Star Wars, and it just went downhill from there.
Yeah, it's a slippery slope,
Yeah.
So I guess going through, just the different sagas and in the different trilogies, which character kind of resonates to you and sticks out to you most? Who's your favorite?
So he got a lot of hate, but Hayden Christensen as Anakin Skywalker I loved. And this is probably biased because I grew up on him, but I thought everybody's like, oh, he's so monotone, but I feel like that, I think that made his character what it is. I feel like that was how it was supposed to be played, and I thought he actually, through his monotone, he kind of showed a lot of emotion, if that makes sense. So yeah. I really resonated with him.
That's what's up.
I really liked his character.
That's solid. Yeah,
That's cool.
I've always been an Anakin kind of guy, and
yeah, definitely.
Hayden's performance is not really something that is it's not something that has drawn me away from Anakin at all. And then I didn't really even notice it until people online said, hey, guess what? Hayden Christensen sucks. And then I was like, oh yeah, I guess he does kind of suck. And then You
guys want to hear something crazy about? So I grew up loving him, right? I read recently that in the Revenge of the Sith that his hair was extensions. Did you guys know that?
Yep.
That messed me up. I was like, what?
Yeah,
that messed me up for real.
Luscious Skywalker hair is a lie.
Yeah.
Alan, give me kind of a sentence reply on just what exactly do you love about Star Wars? What is it that connects to you personally?
I don't know. I think there's something for everyone. So I grew up with a lot of siblings, and I have sisters and brothers. So we all me and my brother, we loved obviously the lightsaber fights, Anakin being badass. My sisters, they could the the love story with Padme and Anakin, Leia and Han, all that stuff. And I think it's just got someone for every type of person, every age group. Everybody can find something to love about it. Because we all started as kids, and we're all in our 20s now, still loving it. So
yeah,
Yep.
it resonates.
Well, cool. My final question for you is, what are you most excited for? Just TV. I know there's a lot coming too. So TV shows, books, and video games, and all that fun stuff.
I'll be the first to tell you I haven't read that many of the books, but I'm literally listening from your guys' stuff. I'm excited for what's coming up in the what's it called? Is it the High Republic or is it the
High Republic?
Okay,
yeah.
That stuff sounds cool. I still got to read those books. I'm really excited for Mandalorian season 3.
Yeah,
of course, it's going to be awesome. And I wrote down one other one. Sorry, you might have to cut this. Oh, the new open world game.
Oh yeah, the Ubisoft game. That's I've got to keep my eye on for.
I haven't read anything more about that, but if it's anything like what I'm hearing, it's going to be awesome, and it's Star Wars, so it can't be bad,
Yeah, right. It's good content. We'll get it. Content will take. I'm
interested to see what they do with it.
Yeah, I've been saying, give me Star Wars, Elder Scrolls, something like that.
That would be insane.
For so long.
That would be insane.
I really
I've been saying the same thing about Fallout. So if it's anything between those, it can't
just
be bad.
Full control RPG. That's gonna be That's gonna be awesome.
I'm excited to see what era they put it in, because I don't know if they're gonna somehow relate it to the Skywalker saga, or if it's just gonna be completely on its own.
I was saying that I kind of want it to be post Skywalker saga, because we haven't really seen anything from that era yet. So I think that would be cool as like a little. I don't know if it would be an introduction necessarily, but as like a clue into where the galaxy goes from the Rise of Skywalker,
like a weird epilogue that doesn't tie to anything.
Yeah, it's just like it's set in this era, and that's all you need to know.
Yeah, definitely.
Well, cool. All right, guys, let's talk about why we're here. Attack of the Groans, the movie about how the Jedi formed an army of men who just groan all the time. It's Tamara Morrison who just groans the whole time.
Nice.
Never heard that before.
No, it's an original. It's a classic. It's a good time. This movie's got a lot of, I guess, love-hate. I think over time, especially with Clone Wars coming out and being the cultural impact that was, I think it made a lot of people really look back at the prequel movies, specifically this and this, really specifically Revenge of the Sith. But wow, I think, general notes for me coming off this movie is you watch it and it's so funny how different everybody is by the end of the war, even though it's like a 5-year span.
Yeah.
How different everybody changes. So yeah, that's my little piece. I'm going to just go through these questions and we'll talk about it, just to discuss it. And I've got breaking points down and all that fun stuff. So, overall thoughts, Alan, what do you think of Attack of the Clones? I know you said this is kind of how you started, but
so like I
from
said,
then to now, what is your view?
So it's got a lot of nostalgia in it. So I know a lot of people hate this movie, but I love it. I think it does a really good job of bridging the first movie to the third movie, because obviously it's a huge difference going from a different Anakin, to a new actor. You kind of see a lot of people are saying that, I don't know about a lot of people, but I think that you could argue that this movie's not really needed, because that's beside the point. I think it's really important to see his connection with his mom kind of evolve into his connection with Padme. I think that's huge. You kind of see how he's starting to defy from Obi-Wan. That's pretty much it.
Braydon, what about you?
Yeah, I've always been kind of so on this movie. And I've actually grown to like it a lot, especially in the past couple of years. But it's always been the movie that I've always just been kind of the most bored watching, because there's like 2 big action set pieces, and the rest of it is kind of like cluing you in on the story and like how the Clone Wars are starting, and how, Master Sifo Dyas or whoever this guy was went to Kamino and started this clone army. So it's kind of like, it was very especially so young. It's so convoluted to watch when you're so young. There's a lot of stuff in it that's just like, it's hard to comprehend.
Agree with that. Yeah,
it's hard to comprehend when you're like 6 years old watching this movie and you're like, wait, what?
And then they're like, they're on the Orange Planet fighting. Yeah. Great, this is fun.
Obi-Wan's sitting on a spoon with this weird long neck dude. It's like so weird. But yeah, this is a little bit lower in my kind of definitive Star Wars ranking. I use that term loosely, but I think that this is a movie that you watch if you just want some good prequel nostalgia and you want some awesome Star Wars lightsaber action with a bunch of Jedi. I think this is the one you watch if you want that kind of stuff.
I agree. Alan, where does this movie sit for your ranking?
So I wrote it out because I was prepared for this question. It's bottom 4 for me. So obviously first is Revenge of the Sith, and last is The Last Jedi. Braydon, I know you're gonna hate me for that, but not far behind that is Attack of the Clones. It's pretty low on the rankings, but it's only as high as it is because of nostalgia. So it kind of beats out the sequels.
It's got some heart to it. Tune us next week to Alan and Braydon fist fighting for the right of Last Jedi.
Yeah, we're gonna do a lightsaber duel to see who.
It's gonna be like a mud fight with Star Wars weapons.
As soon as I wrote it, I was like, man.
I'm not one of those people who's like, oh, you have to have the same opinion as me. How dare you? Like, that's cool.
You have to like the thing I like.
Yeah,
that's funny. What you said, your brother showed you these and kind of introduced you to the world of Star Wars. Did he introduce you with this one specifically? What is do you know a first experience and like a story or something that, of your first time watching this movie?
I couldn't tell you specifically the first time watching this movie, but I know I've heard you guys talk about it. We had all the lightsabers, from the little flick out ones, real cheap. We had a bunch of those, and I used to get
things hurt.
They hurt. I was about to say I used to get my butt kicked in the backyard with those. I don't know. It was that we had the what was that game called? Star Wars Battlefront. We had the first one. That was from what I remember. It had a lot of prequel stuff in it. A lot of like Naboo, all of it, Camino. So I always had a real like tight connection with that stuff because that was what me and my brother kind of bonded over as kids.
Yeah, absolutely. Braydon, what's your first experience with Attack of the Groans?
Attack of the Groans. Thank you, Jackson. Yeah, I don't really know. It kind of ties into, I don't really know what my first experience even was with Star Wars in general. But I think my first experience with this was probably seeing the DVD on the shelf at my house because I had
I thought you meant the Blockbuster shelf.
No, not the infamous Blockbuster shelf, because I actually got into the prequels before I even knew the original trilogy existed, like I said before. But I think seeing the Anakin, because so this is kind of weird because I had no clue what Star Wars was or any of that kind of thing, but I thought that Obi-Wan with the long hair and the beard was actually Qui-Gon Jinn, but they just recast him. I didn't recognize Ewan McGregor. And I was like,
man.
Oh, who's that guy? Is that supposed to be like Obi-Wan or something? Whenever I saw Hayden Christensen as Anakin. And then probably a couple of years later, I watched the movie and I had this revelation of like, oh, these are just the same people, but older.
You lied to yourself this entire time.
Yeah. Again, this was probably like 2003, Braydon.
That's funny.
But then, I think, it made a big impression on me, especially with all like the Lego sets that came out from this movie. I think like this movie is what I think of when I think of Star Wars Lego sets. Like I think I had like a bunch of the speeders, especially the one that's in Coruscant, like that yellow one. I had that and like the green one from like the Changeling girl, whatever.
Yeah, the chase scene. Yeah,
and I also had some toys from this movie too. So I think my first experience, especially with the prequels, are so odd because I don't really remember. So I have to kind of like, my earliest memory with this movie is probably looking at the DVD.
Yeah, that's fair. Yeah. I remember my parents sat me down to watch the prequels before we went to go see Revenge of the Sith in theaters. And that's like probably the furthest I can think back to knowing what Attack of the Clones was, but I just have no idea when that was,
Yeah.
So,
I always thought that Attack of the Clones was the coolest Star Wars title for the longest time.
I still think it's kind of a really cool one.
Yeah. Although I do love the Rise of Skywalker title. It's so cool. Anyway, moving on.
So we're just going to go through my little bullet list that we have and just talk about each kind of important part of the movie. I have it split midway to where we'll kind of talk about Obi-Wan's investigation, and then we're going to flip it to Anakin and Padme on Naboo, since like the second half of that movie is that split the whole time. So instead of just jumping back and forth, we're going to talk about one and then talk about the other and then do Geonosis to the end. So this movie starts off kind of showing and kind of shoving at us the pre-war tensions that the Republic faced. Alan, what were your kind of initial thoughts and reactions to in like the title scroll we're introduced, to the Separatist alliance, which has now formed in these 10 years. What are your thoughts on just kind of how things have changed from Phantom Menace to essentially become this pre-war, bullfight that they have?
So for me, even just recently, I've started to understand the politics of it a lot more.
Yeah.
When rewatching the prequels, as a kid, I was just there for the lightsaber battles, the cool stuff,
Yeah.
But like I was watching it today, and I was like, "Dang, that's like real political. Like you could learn something from this."
Yeah.
And you kind of see it at the end of Phantom Menace, and it really picks up at the beginning of this movie. Probably like the first half of this movie is super political. So, to be honest, it kind of confuses me just how there's so many different entities trying to like come together against the Republic, I guess. I don't know if that makes sense. You know what I'm saying? Because
no, I got that.
You kind of see it when I'm kind of skipping ahead, but when Dooku's sitting down with all those guys on Geonosis, there's so many different guys, and they're all kind of playing their part in
all the different worlds joining.
Right.
Yeah, these different clans, like the banking clan, and like what banking clan? What are you talking about? Yeah,
Braydon, what about you?
Yeah, I think that this is the first time watching this movie, especially this year, was the first time I actually understood the crawl, like in general, about how like there's like these like there's these planets pulling out of the Republic, and like they don't want them to pull out of the Republic, and that's kind of how the Clone Wars started, was like this conflict between the Republic and the Separatists. So yeah, that's kind of, Star Wars politics has always been, especially in the prequels, Star Wars politics has always kind of gone over my head because, like Alan said, I've always been more focused on the lightsaber duels and the action.
Well, it's super it's very convoluted politics too. It's
politics
a lot.
That only people like George Lucas would understand.
Yeah. And it's so much at once, and then it just all of a sudden it breaks into war, and you're just like, oh, okay, cool.
Yeah, it's like, oh, cool. It's not a lightsaber, cool.
That's funny. So, with this movie too, moving on, we are introduced and finally meet our official Anakin Skywalker, Hayden Christensen, introduced in this movie. And really, I honestly think he does a little better in this movie than he does in Revenge of the Sith. Not even performance wise, just like
that's a hot
Anakin
take.
wise. I just think Anakin's like Anakin in this one a little more just because of how young he is. Alan, I'll start with you because you talked about how you kind of said your piece on this, so you may just repeat yourself on it. But what are your Attack of the Clones Hayden Christensen's thoughts? How do you kind of see and perceive Anakin from this, and what did you think of his performance in this movie?
So yeah, kind of like I said, he's super emotional. I think we can relate to that, especially at that age, because he's basically a teenager at that point, right? He's being told what to do. He's being exposed for all of his wrongs, and he doesn't want to listen to Obi-Wan. I'm sure we can relate to that at some point in our lives. So I think, yeah, definitely he's very emotional. He's very connected to his mom. And like I said, it kind of directly transfers over to Padme as soon as his mom dies in the movie. No spoilers, but I think
Dude, it's only been out for almost 20 years.
It's been out for 20 years. Are you kidding me?
Well, hopefully all the listeners have seen the movie if they're listening to this.
Someone sitting there, dang it!
I was hoping for a spoiler-free review from this Star Wars podcast.
That's funny. Braydon, what do you think of Hayden in this movie? What do you think of Hayden?
Hayden in general, I love Hayden. Even just as a person, not even as an actor, I just think he's a really cool guy. And I've always thought that people take his performance the wrong way, because I think that his performance and, what he does with it is a product of George Lucas's directing as well, because George really isn't much of an actor's director. And we kind of, get that sense watching these movies. And he's also given this dialogue that George has been experimenting with about how like the prequels are like this old, Shakespearean style dialogue that like, you expect the dialogue to, progress and change as the decades go on. But I think that performance wise, Hayden does a really good job at selling the relationship between him and Obi-Wan first off, because they kind of have this banter that I really love, especially in the beginning when we first see him in the elevator. Like that one time you saved me in that pit of Gundarks or whatever he says. And then like how desperate he is with Padme, and like how he is so willing to open his heart to Padme all the time. And it kind of comes off as creepy, and I can see a lot of the weird
I haven't seen her in 10 years, Obi-Wan. It's like, please.
And that scene where she's like packing up so they can go off to Naboo, and he kind of like stares at her when she walks away. Yeah. And it's kind of weird. But yeah, I think that, and again, I think the delivery of the dialogue wasn't given much, if any, direction at all either. So, but overall, I think he's a solid Anakin that we can see why he became what he did. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, I think, yeah, I definitely agree. And I think Hayden does a really good job at kind of showing that unleashed and not fully controlled power that he receives, and it's more emotional power in this one, just solely off of how I say angsty he is, how just fiery he is, and how he's heated up most of the movie. He's just angry at kind of everybody, and it's only Padme and Palpatine are the only people who kind of keep him at bay, which just aren't the people he needs in this movie. I think, kind of moving on with this too, we'll stay on the same subject with it. I'll just ask my new question. Anakin and Obi-Wan's relationship is a little different than what I think we would have anticipated / what it turned out to be too. They kind of butt heads most of this movie. Anakin keeps trying to jump the gun, trying to do stuff and, prove himself that he can do it. And Obi-Wan's really trying to kind of hold him back, and it's even in the line or in the the sand people scene when he's yelling at Padme about it. The men and the women. He's like, it's all Obi-Wan's fault. It's all Obi-Wan's fault that this happened. Like Obi-Wan's not even related to it, and he's just like, it's all Obi-Wan's fault. Alan, what do you think about just kind of seeing those two who, at this point, all we know of Anakin and Obi-Wan was that, they were Jedi or master and apprentice. And, Obi-Wan in A New Hope is like a good friend, at least that, that they were close to each other. What are your thoughts on just seeing this being the opposite of kind of what we're told?
Well, on your point of being good friends, I think you really see that evolve in the next movie. But I think that this movie really exposes that. I mean, Obi-Wan he basically became knighted after he killed Maul, right? So you could argue that he wasn't really ready to be a master yet, I would say. And that kind of shows because I don't know exactly the amount of years, but he's not that much older than Anakin. And he had just gotten done being a Padawan, and he's already expected to train this kid who's already too old to be a Jedi. He's going to be hard to train. So, it was bad from the start.
Yeah. Yeah, and Obi-Wan's just trying to, he's just trying to help him. He's doing his best with it, and Anakin's just very clouded with anger and fear and hatred. Braydon, what about you? What are your thoughts on the Anakin and Obi-Wan dynamic in this movie specifically?
I think that, we like I said, right off the bat, we do see their relationship, and we hear about these past stories of adventures they've kind of been through, and like Alan said, Anakin is so quick to just, or was it you or Alan, whoever said Anakin is so quick to just write all of his failures off onto, it was Obi-Wan's fault. He didn't train me enough. He doesn't understand. He's too cruel. And I think Padme has this great line in that scene where they're kind of about to go off to Naboo, and he's complaining about Obi-Wan, and she says, our mentors have a way of seeing more of our faults than we would like, and it's the only way we grow. I think that's so perfect to Anakin's situation, because Anakin does not like having his failures pointed out to him consistently, because he just sees that as, I must be a terrible Jedi if all these things are wrong with me.
I didn't get it right. Oh, I'm the worst.
Yeah, I must suck. And I think that, Obi-Wan has this thing of, oh my God, Qui-Gon trusted me with this kid. and he's under so much pressure of Qui-Gon's legacy and what Qui-Gon wanted him to do. And Anakin is under this pressure of,
the chosen one.
The chosen one. And, his master expects so much of him, expects him to be this perfect Jedi because, it's kind of a snowball effect of all this stuff coming up. So, yeah, I think the relationship between Anakin and Obi-Wan is sold super well in this film, and their banter throughout this film is so great. And we also get that throughout the Clone Wars, too. And I think the Clone Wars does a really good job of building that relationship between Anakin and Obi-Wan as well.
Groovy. Moving on, let's talk about Padme's assassination plot. And I just kind of mean like the whole thing. We'll kind of talk about the bombing in the beginning to, I guess we can talk about the entire chase scene with Zam Wessel, I call her Zam Weasel, but I know that's not right. Zam and I want to talk about kind of just the logistics of Padme's. Everyone's trying to kill Padme.
Yeah.
Alan, what are your thoughts about on just kind of how this plan to kill Padme really kind of ends up into this big expansive thing? It shows of how important Padme's role into the war with it.
And it's kind of the driving plot of the film too.
Yeah, like it's Padme's, kind of taking a big step with this. What are your thoughts on just kind of Padme's growth of becoming former queen to a senator to, people trying to assassinate and kill her?
I gotta say, throughout the whole film, she doesn't seem bothered by it at all that people are trying to kill her. She just seems like too chill with it. And I'm like, death is
right off the bat. Yeah.
She's like, oh, I'll be fine. I don't need them in my room. I'm like, I don't know. Clearly you did. Luckily they saved the day. But yeah, I think you can kind of see throughout that they kind of are trying more and more drastically to kill her. I think it's kind of funny that they ended up on Geonosis, like, the people that were trying to kill her, she ended up right in their hands.
Just like, well, that was easy.
Yeah. And then, she still gets her way out of it at the end. So,
moving on with kind of the actual chase itself, Braydon, I'll ask you a different question. What was your reactions to our two protagonist Jedis and their methods of catching an assassin? I.e., Obi-Wan instantly jumping out of the window and Anakin later just like bailing out of the car.
It's supposed to be so epic, but I'm like, oh, that's so irresponsible.
I burst out laughing.
Yeah.
It's just like, there goes Obi-Wan.
Yeah, and I love how Obi-Wan's so quick to go chase after the thing, and Anakin just like, I gotta find a speeder. Let's just find a speeder real quick, and then he goes and gets the speeder.
I think it's funny how Obi-Wan kind of, dunks on Anakin for having very reckless moves, but I'm like, dude, did you just see what you just did?
Did you just jump out a window onto a droid? Yeah. But yeah, I think that chase is kind of, for me, what kind of encapsulates the tone of this movie. Of like, it doesn't feel very Star Wars. Coruscant does not feel very Star Wars from the face value. But the more you see like this nightlife and all these ships, like, because we only see it from a distance until this movie, and you see all these different ships kind of going across like a freeway, and there's a chase happening in the middle of it. I think it's just so cool to see, we get to we're showcased to all these different characters, all these different locations around Coruscant, and those like weird power cells that electrocute them when they go through them. It's just, I think this was kind of Lucas's way to give us a cool little tour of Coruscant that we haven't really seen before.
And to see like a modern style in this world that's been, I say, old to them,
Yeah. And I also think that the music is great in this sequence. And also the sound design is so good in this whole sequence, and the weird like whistling sound that the other ship has. And I used to have the toy itself of the speeder that Anakin and Obi-Wan were in, that yellow one. I used to have the toy. But yeah, I think this sequence is great, and it's a good attention getter if you're not, on board with this movie quite yet at this point.
Alan, what are your thoughts on just kind of seeing Coruscant up close, and especially seeing the two Jedi in action and just free falling mainly? That's their main. Yeah. That's their main like attack move is free fall.
I think it's funny, like what Braydon said. Obi-Wan Kenobi, he's so annoyed by Anakin's things, but he jumped out a window. You know, I thought it was when I was watching it yesterday and today, and I was thinking Zam Wesell, she sniped out the little, I guess the drone thing when it was coming back to her. I'm like, if she was that accurate, why didn't she just shoot homeboy? You know, that's what I was thinking. I was like, you know how that probably would have helped her out a lot. You know, she probably would have lived. So that really stuck with me. I thought it was real cool, or pretty funny whenever they got to the nightclub scene. How Obi-Wan kind of just goes off, he gets a drink, the whole death sticks thing. I'm sure we're going to get into that.
He goes, you go find her. Where are you going? To get a drink?
Yeah. And I also love how that Coruscant like kind of nightclub thing, it very, very much echoes the cantina scene in A New Hope.
Yeah.
Like in almost every way possible.
Well, especially in like Obi-Wan just igniting a lightsaber in a bar. Yeah. It must be his move, you know, get Zam, and everyone just kind of stops and then goes, "Oh, okay, cool," and just goes back to their business.
I wonder if that's what Kenobi does whenever he's in his exile on Tatooine. He just goes to the cantina and like
he just becomes
ignites his lightsaber. Yeah,
that's funny.
Because I'm sure his excuse is, I killed a Jedi and took it from him.
Yeah, right. Yeah. He's like, I'm crazy. Oh, that's crazy Ben Kenobi stealing lightsabers from
that
people.
That old wizard, yeah.
So once they catch Zam Wesell, you know, as Zam's about to spill the beans on Django Fett, Django shoots her with a poison dart, and it starts Obi-Wan on his, I think Obi-Wan's kind of side story in this is like a detective story.
I think it's awesome. Yeah.
Who's trying to kill Padme. He's trying to track it down, and eventually leads him into the hands of the, you know, opposite military power. Alan, what are your kind of thoughts on just Obi-Wan? We'll talk general notes of just kind of Obi-Wan's story in this, where he goes, what takes him, and just kind of the encounters he sees in this.
So I think, like you said, it's like a detective movie. That was spot on, because he really does. He takes a clue. He goes to one guy. You guys are going to bring him up, and that takes him to the archives, and then eventually he finally gets to Camino, and it just evolves from there.
Yeah, it goes nuts. Once he gets to Camino, it just takes off. Right. But like that first little prior part with some awesome friends that we meet along the way.
Who's going to be the first one to say it?
I want Braydon to say it. It's his boy.
All right.
Braydon, what are your thoughts on the Obi-Wan investigation?
I think Dex is the most interesting character in this movie. And let me explain. So, the first person that Obi-Wan thinks about when he sees this little dart and he doesn't know what it is, he's like, well, Dex probably knows what it is.
Yeah,
you know
right?
What? That means Dex has an awesome past where he knows a bunch of crap. And we don't know why he knows a bunch of stuff. He just knows. And I think that's awesome that the first person he goes to is this greasy little diner owner, you know, in the pits of Coruscant.
Like start a mini series, late night talks with Dexter Jettster at the diner.
Oh my God.
Late night coffee drinks with Dexter.
I think that would be a great podcast for Dex to start, would be late nights with Dexter Jettster. And he just sits down and has coffee and talks about everything he knows about the galaxy.
War stories with the diner cook on Coruscant.
Yes, absolutely. But yeah, I think that the fact that basically Dexter is the reason why we get Django Fett in this movie is so cool to me. It's awesome.
So yeah, and you know, talking with Jettster leads him. Jettster tells him about Camino, and I like being introduced to Camino as kind of this mysterious place all around, and then seeing when you finally meet it, it's not necessarily what you expected. This movie gives us some cool new planets too. Alan, what are your just kind of general thoughts on Camino and the Kaminoans and just how they kind of function and what the world looked like and, you know, perceived to you?
So the first thing, I was watching it today, the first thing that came to mind, this might sound dumb, but it was kind of like it reminded me a little bit of Bespin, but kind of like in rain instead of in the clouds. Is that crazy? Because it kind of
I get that.
That's on point. Yeah,
I never realized it before, but today I was like, dang, that kind of reminiscent. But I think that are they just called Kaminoans, the white guys with the long necks?
Yeah.
Okay, they freak me out. They always did since I was a kid. Just their speech patterns, the way they talk.
Yeah, it's how they talk.
It's very like alien trying to be human.
Yeah. And it's definitely weird. And just the fact that they're like so out of the loop on everything, they don't even know who the Sifo-Dyas guy is that put in the order. It's something else that I realized today was how Jango Fett is kind of playing both sides if you look at it from a certain point of view, because
he's just doing who's ever got the money, dude. He's
and that's
just there.
Crazy to me. But I think it's pretty cool.
He's just a simple man trying to make his way in the universe.
There you go.
Yeah, right.
I just think it's cool that you kind of get your introduction to Boba Fett too, and yeah, I just think it was real cool whenever Obi-Wan goes into Jango's quarters, because you kind of see his armor in the background, and I think you're kind of sitting there wondering the whole time if Obi-Wan sees it, which I would say he did. It's pretty obvious, but he's at that point he's just interrogating him, and then whenever they kind of got in the little video chat with Yoda and Mace Windu, he was like, yo, just bring him back. And I was like, I don't see that happen.
If only he did.
Yeah. Braydon, what's your thoughts on Kamino and just kind of Kaminoans? And
so I think on the surface level, Kamino is very cool. It's a very, I think George is running out of biomes to put in the planet. So he was like, all right, make a rain one.
We're going to make a pond planet next.
Yeah, I was watching this today, and I thought that a lot of the production design and then just the design of the planet is very Star Trek.
Really?
And everything is very round and spherical, and like even like all the white. It's just so it screamed Star Trek to me, like the 2009 J.J. Abrams Star Trek. But yeah, I love the the introduction to Boba Fett. Boba, is your father here?
Yeah, freaks me out.
Yeah, little Boba creeps you out.
No, it's the way they talk. I'm just freaks me out.
Yeah, it's almost starting to think you weren't going to visit.
Yeah, it's like they know that he doesn't understand. They're just screwing with him.
Yeah.
But I kind of wanted to jump back just a little bit because we kind of skipped the whole when Obi-Wan goes to the temple to ask Yoda about the planet that's missing from the system.
Yoda kind of roasts him in front of all these kids.
Yeah, he's basically like, dude, these younglings know more than you do. Shut up. But like, I love how Yoda kind of depends on the minds of children to see things that adults wouldn't see.
Well, here's the thing too. How did no one how did Obi-Wan nor Yoda be like, it should be here, and no one was like, I'll go check there first. Like, I'll go see if it's actually there or not.
And then the conclusion is just, hey, just go check there.
Yeah, right? The kid's like, it's hidden, and Obi-Wan's like, light bulb.
Truly wonderful the mind of a child is. But
it's a gift.
Back to Kamino. I think that the way that Tamara Morrison plays Jango Fett is so genius in how he keeps him so mysterious and so obviously like he's hiding something. He's like, all right, we gotta go now as soon as Kenobi leaves.
The simple man line he has throws me off because it's such a it makes sense as a response, but it's such a jarring response to what Obi-Wan.
Yeah, he has such a simple question.
He's like, you must be very proud of like doing this, and Jango's just like, I don't really care. He's like, I'm just here. And
he's like, not by choice, brother. Yeah.
Okay, cool. Yeah, no, that's fine. Yeah, I think this movie kind of introduces Jango in a weird kind of way because it gives us all of the like Boba content that we wanted with his dad. We talked about Jango's first scene a lot, so I'll ask the second scene, kind of wrapping up the Obi-Wan little section before we get to Geonosis. Let's talk about the seismic charge scene and just kind of Jango Fett and Boba's kind of interaction in this and how I think their dialogue in this, even though it's mainly Boba yelling just to get Obi-Wan, I think their dialogue in this is kind of interesting to see how they work. It makes me think if they go on jobs together. Alan, what are your thoughts on just kind of Django and especially how ruthless he kind of can be in this movie?
I thought it was crazy today watching again how many different weapons they have on that ship, and how they can maneuver that through an asteroid field like they were doing. I thought it was crazy. It's kind of crazy how I don't know how to say it. Basically, how violent Boba is at such a young age. His dad's pretty much. Yeah, right. I mean, he's pretty much. He's a clone, but it's pretty awesome how he's. You can see from a young age that he's going to be a bounty hunter. Like he's built like for that.
Boba knows exactly who Django is too, and Django isn't afraid to hide that from Boba. And I think that's what helped kind of make Boba also ruthless.
Yeah, he's ruthless.
Boba always knows.
Boba always knows. Braydon, what are your thoughts on seismic charges and Boba and Django's kind of interactions together?
I've always thought that the sound design and the sound effect for the seismic charge is probably my top 3 favorite Star Wars sounds of all time.
The greatest euphoric feeling you'll ever encounter in your life.
It literally hits you in your chest whenever you watch it. It's so awesome and big.
Yeah.
But as for like kind of the relationship between Boba and Django, I just think that Boba is that kid that you go to school with that just seriously thinks he's better than everybody else. And he's like that kid with a really abusive father.
My dad's Django Fett. And everyone's like, I don't care, Boba.
Yeah. And like, he just thinks he's the best at everything and you hate him. He's just a little shit. That's what I think Boba is to me in this movie. And like whenever he's around his father, he's like, "Oh, hello, father." And, he's a perfect little angel.
Calm and proper, yeah.
Yeah. I think that kind of, and we see that in Clone Wars that, he actually is a little shit. So, I definitely prefer adult Boba.
For sure. Mid 40s Boba is my favorite. So turning this coin now, we're going to talk about the other, I say subplot of this movie. They're both kind of important to each other, but we're going to talk
parallel
about
plots. Yeah.
Yeah. We're going to talk about the different vibe, the definite love story of this movie. We'll initially go off. Alan, what are your just kind of general thoughts about Anakin and Padme's, their kind of journey they take on this from, Anakin was 100% even before he walked into the room, but Padme especially kind of denying herself of the feelings before being accepted to them. What are your thoughts on just kind of Anakin and Padme's love and just how they formed through this movie?
Well, his pickup lines suck. I'll be the first to tell you that.
Anakin's got no game, man.
Dude, hold on. Everything soft and smooth like you? That's a banger.
No, I thought it was, but I would say that his terrible pickup lines kind of show that he hasn't talked to a girl. He's only been thinking about this girl for the last 10 years. So, he hasn't really had an opportunity to practice, or he doesn't have Google to just look up what he should say. So it's kind of funny to me that Padme even was into any of those pickup lines. But, I guess it worked out for him. It's kind of crazy to me also how quickly, I guess, things changed, because at the beginning she was like, we can't do this, and by the end, which it doesn't seem like that was that long.
It makes me uncomfortable, and Anakin's like, whoo, like, sorry.
Yeah, no, he's definitely more like, haha, never mind. Like, I bet you like it.
He's got like the hair.
Give her those creepy looks the whole movie.
Rolling a Play-Doh snake. Yeah.
Ew. Braydon, what are your thoughts on just Anakin and Padme?
I think that a lot of people immediately turn to their relationship, especially in this movie, and want to trash the performances. And I think the reason that is a lot of the times it's not sold very well, but I see what George is going for about how uncomfortable a lot of these moments are supposed to be, and how nervous Anakin is to talk to Padme, and how nervous Padme is to talk to Anakin all the time. And, they have a really interesting dynamic to where they can bounce off of each other and have that charisma with each other and have that chemistry. And then the next scene, it's like they never met each other before.
The second they have to talk about anything serious, they both freeze up.
Yeah. Yeah. I've always thought that their relationship I don't have any issues with it. I mean, they're just two awkward, young people that don't know, because Anakin has been dreaming about Padme his entire life. Like, that's the only woman he wants. And Padme's just kind of been off doing her own thing and living her own adult life, being a senator.
Like her mid-20s, she's a senator. She's trying to get people keep trying to kill her, and Anakin's this like dumb 19-year-old Jedi Padawan who's frolicking in the Naboo fields,
very naive.
His love. Yes, absolutely. And that's great you say that, because kind of speaking into naive, I think from kind of this point of the movie on, this is the, how Anakin in this is very, like you said, he's very naive. He kind of needs that push for him to realize when it's time to be an adult and what exactly that means. And I think from this point of the movie, from Anakin's vision of Shmi all the way to literally the end of this movie, is kind of Anakin being like, okay, like there are things more important than me just being dumb and in love, especially in the scene with Obi-Wan and Anakin when Padme falls out. Yeah. And Anakin's like, what would Padme do? And he's like, she would do her duty.
She would do her duty. Yeah.
So I have this on here as just a very general note, but we will talk about essentially Anakin and Padme's trip to Tatooine and going back to Tatooine. Alan, what are your thoughts on Anakin investigating his mother's death to eventually investigating his mother's disappearance to eventually his mother's death, and that trauma and experience he gets from that?
So something that really stuck out to me when I was watching was how he goes and sees Watto, and Watto's like, we should go inside. He refers him to Lars. Lars says the same thing. He's like, we should go inside. They go inside, and then I'm like, you've got to know from the start, this is bad news. Like, it's only going to get worse, and I don't know. I feel like he got something out of the fact that she wasn't a slave the rest of her life, but his mom, obviously. But I feel like that had to be, obviously that was real hard for him. He kind of saw it coming, so it was a good build up to the next movie, which we won't get into because, you guys got that next week, but.
Braydon, what are your thoughts on just Anakin's dealing with just kind of this moment for Anakin and how it really affected his attachments that he is building in this movie as well?
Yeah, I would agree with Alan that kind of Anakin's mother's death, I would kind of argue that moment for him is the moment that he doesn't care anymore and almost is okay with, defecting from the ways of the Jedi because of how attached he was to his mother. And, I think there is some solace for him in knowing that his mother did not die a slave and she was freed and had a little bit of a happy, normal life for a section of the time they had apart. I think it's just so tragic having Anakin be, essentially the one to the last one to be with his mother as she dies, and her dying in his arms. It's super powerful. And I think that, we sense the rage in Anakin immediately as his mother dies. And
the music at that point is awesome too.
Yeah. As soon as she dies, we start hearing little notes from the Imperial March, and we're like, oh man, this isn't good. Especially when he's going through the desert and we're hearing that Duel of the Fates, and we're just like, something's going down, man. Something's going down, man. So yeah, I've always thought that the whole Tatooine sequence is so powerful, especially being able to see the Lars homestead in the early stages and all that kind of stuff.
With Joel Edgerton as Owen Lars. That's that's such a weird casting to me. I don't know why.
I know, because in like 20 years, he ages 40 years.
He wasn't a huge name too, so when he cast him, he was like, oh yeah, that's just some guy playing Owen. And now it's like, it's Joel Edgerton.
Had a good audition. Yeah.
Yeah, right. So from here on out, we're going to talk about Geonosis, the orange bug planet. My initial coming off for Geonosis is that planet actually kind of scared me.
Absolutely.
Tunnels and caves are not my thing, on top of giant bugs that shoot. I don't know. It's like weird, like plasma laser that they have on their guns.
I love the Geonosians.
the sound design. I love the sound design of their guns. I don't know. I just it's the sound that they their language and just the clicking, and it's just no, I don't do that. Alan, what are your kind of just base thoughts on the planet of Geonosis and just kind of what we see while we're there?
So when I was a kid, I thought it was Tatooine just because I saw a desert. Until I saw all the bugs, and they freaked me out. Like you said, the tunnels, all that didn't sit right with. Oh, thought we lost them. My bad.
You're good. Keep going.
The tunnels and bugs, they didn't sit right with me. Their weapons were real cool. I thought it was kind of crazy how they had basically the arena. They're all just flying in. I guess it's like a normal occurrence for them to just have people come in and get killed by these crazy monsters.
Braydon, what about you?
I think that Geonosis had a lot of opportunities to be this cool, unique planet, but then George went with the sand planet, and I was like, all right, more sand.
Just like the simulations.
Yeah, and I think the Geonosians are so cool because they're basically like these big bugs that happen to be geniuses and come up.
Just incredibly smart.
Yeah, and they like are able to come up with plans to eventually construct the Death Star that we end up seeing. I don't know if you've ever read Catalyst, the pre-Rogue One book. It deals a lot with like Geonosians and like their contribution to the making of the.
Tie into that?
Yeah. It's
I was
a
always
super great
curious
read.
about.
It's
I was curious
read.
about how. Yeah, cool.
Yeah, you really get into like Krennic and his relationship with Poggle the Lesser and how they kind of come up with what this thing is supposed to be. But I digress. Kind of the concept of Geonosis is cool, but I almost wish that we got something different, like not another sand planet. What if we got another? It would have been cool since they're bugs if we got like another like jungle or forest planet or something like that. That would have been cool to me. But I think that would have, if for that, we would not have gotten the Colosseum stuff and that great, all the great moments we get in this like sand deserty Colosseum. And I think, color palette wise, I think that like the orange and browns really is, encapsulates Attack of the Clones, and that's kind of like the color palette I think of when I think of Attack of the Clones.
Absolutely.
I agree with that, and how I think it's funny how Attack of the Clones tries to kind of come off as this gritty movie, and it's like total atmosphere and vibe doesn't give that, but like the sets do, and like the story, especially on Geonosis, it's just a very dark and kind of grittier story. Before we talk about just kind of the Colosseum and how the movie progresses from there, let's talk about our new villain, our new bad guy, meeting Count Dooku. And the start of the movie, he's brought up by name. No one really knows who he is. And even then, when Obi-Wan's tracing down the dart and whatnot, and Django says, "I was hired by a man, Tyrannus," that's Darth Tyrannus. I think it's cool how not necessarily you know that until the scene you meet Dooku with Obi-Wan. I think that's honestly one of my favorite dialogue scenes in that movie. There's a lot in it that I think a lot of people miss just because it's a simple conversation.
Yeah.
Especially with Dooku being, Qui-Gon's former master and, being under, he tries to trick Obi-Wan in it by saying that he's just trying to stop Darth Sidious from, ending the Republic. Alan, what are your thoughts in meeting Count Dooku and just kind of who that character was and who he was as a villain too?
So I thought it was really cool. Whenever you get that first introduction to him, when Obi-Wan's kind of, I don't know what that trap is called. He's imprisoned at that point. And he's kind of walking in, and I think that's when you first realize that, like, shit, this is Qui-Gon's master. So, and Obi-Wan knows that, obviously. So you're like, dang, like, he's like, oh, I would have turned Qui-Gon, essentially.
Well, his first words, too, to him are traitor. That's the first words to him. Dooku walks in, it's traitor,
That's a shot. It's a direct shot.
It's FN287 all over again.
Yeah, right.
But I thought that was really, really intriguing how, he's trying to pretty much take shots at Obi-Wan. He's like, yo, like, Qui-Gon would have joined me in what I'm doing. And Obi-Wan's like, no way, bro. Like, that's not what would have happened. And
Qui-Gon Jinn would never join you.
Exactly. You guys got all the quotes. Something that really stuck out to me also was I feel like Count Dooku is kind of like a faux Sith, because I feel like he's not fully committed to it, because it just seems to me like he doesn't really want to kill the Jedi. At the same time, he literally, I mean, you see it at the end of the last battle, again, spoilers. He doesn't want to kill him, and whenever he chops off Anakin's arm, he's like, damn, dude, like, you know, he doesn't, I don't even think he realizes that that's what Palpatine's after at that point, but I don't know, it seems like it really hit him.
Yeah, I would
Braydon,
say
what about you?
Yeah, I think I agree that Dooku is kind of under the impression that Palpatine thinks that he is the one that Palpatine loves,
successor.
and like he is like the kind of the Sith chosen one.
That's kind of
really
everybody that Palpatine brought.
He's like
in.
5 years younger
Palpatine's kind
than
of
him, though. Way too old.
Palpatine's kind of like gaslighting him into thinking that he is this awesome Sith that's going to end up taking down the Jedi. But I really think that Dooku, to me, has always been the Tarkin of the Sith. He's always been very, everything he does is so calculated, and he's so proper just in general. I mean, that's just Christopher Lee's performance as well.
That regalness he carries.
Yeah, and especially being called Count Dooku, like, you know, that George Lucas called him Count Dooku because he was Count Dracula back in like the 40s or whatever. But yeah, I've always been really intrigued by Dooku and his way of doing things, and even his fighting style is super unique. This is the first time we see the curved lightsaber hilt, and I always wanted that toy lightsaber. And I remember having a friend that had the Dooku toy lightsaber that like made sound effects and stuff.
That's awesome.
It was like from Target or something.
Whoa!
But I always liked how weirdly sinister yet relatable Dooku has always been. We even see that in the Clone Wars a lot too.
Yeah. Yeah, I always liked Dooku. I agree. The kind of just the properness that he carries to himself, and Christopher Lee's voice always just so booming and role. Carries that. Yeah, just, and you know, he had fun with it. I love that he was
the Saruman thing going on.
Yeah, right. Yeah, right. Dooku's a good one. Let's talk about the Coliseum. Let's talk about the Monster Mash Coliseum part before we get into the Jedi Mash Coliseum. Alan, what are your thoughts on? Thank you. What are your thoughts on just kind of the let's pit the two Jedi and the Senator to these monsters that we have around and see how it goes, and it just goes horribly wrong.
I gotta say that scene got me hyped up just because there's so much going on at once, and they're all basically just like a big FU to Count Dooku, Django, all the guys up there, Newt Gunray. I thought it was hilarious when Newt Gunray was like, somebody shoot her or something. Like,
she can't do that. Shoot her or something.
Yeah, and they're just like, no, just let it play out. And they're just, meanwhile, they're down there kicking all those monsters' asses. You know, it was funny. She seems to be on top of things. You know, and
yeah,
good job. You know,
yeah, that's my favorite. It's a good job. Is my favorite.
Yeah,
so we came to rescue.
It's a prime example of their snide remarks back and forth the whole movie.
What monster was your favorite?
The one that's screeching. It's the green one with the little sword arms.
The pincer one with Obi-Wan. Yeah. Braydon, what about you in the Monster Mash?
I love the Monster Mash.
You like the Monster Mash?
Yeah, I love the Monster Mash, but I have to bring this up, and I'm very sorry because it'll put you in a bad mood. But
oh no,
I think that Coleman Trebor is the world's worst Jedi of all time.
Bro,
I'm saying that right now.
I don't even know why he was so confident when he went up there too.
This guy trained his entire life to finally, fight Sith Lords.
Himself up.
He finally gets this moment to face a Sith Lord, and he just gets yeeted by Jango Fett.
By a blaster.
Yeah,
the dude gets shot of
he
all things.
He doesn't even react. He's just like, you know what? I don't want to be here anymore. Yeet. But yeah, I think that whole action set piece is so epic. And it's like nothing we had ever seen before in Star Wars. And like, that's kind of what everybody, that had seen the original trilogy and wanted to see the prequels, they all wanted to see the Jedi at their prime. And I think this is a great encapsulation of the Jedi at their prime and actually being like a real Jedi Order.
Yeah, ended real quickly.
Yeah, and I think that we also kind of see another development in Obi-Wan and Anakin's relationship, how we see them in the heat of battle, and we kind of get a sense of their relationship. Because, earlier in the movie, like when we first see them, Obi-Wan is kind of always belittling Anakin and always saying referring to him as like my very young Padawan and like my young Padawan learner apprentice. He's like always saying all these very belittling things that Anakin doesn't want to hear. And like and Obi-Wan knows it gets under his skin. And at this point, Obi-Wan is kind of treating him like this partner and like this co-Jedi Knight, which Anakin knows he isn't. But I've always thought that this sequence has always been a really cool action set piece, and especially being able to see Mace Windu in action finally has always been super cool to see.
Yeah, that was going to be my next question, was what are kind of just thoughts on Mace Windu and the Jedi in general in action? Because, the most we've seen is Qui-Gon, Obi-Wan, and, Luke and Vader, and that's kind of it. Alan, what are your thoughts, especially, I guess, just what Jedi stood out to you in this movie? And even if that is, Mace Windu, he's kind of the main one that is around during then.
So Mace Windu, definitely, he just looked badass out there. His part where he's running straight at Jango Fett, just deflecting the blaster bolts.
When he charges Jango.
Yeah, that part's awesome. I thought it was funny, the part where Padme's kind of riding the thing with the little carriage behind her, and Anakin's out there just baseball batting. He's hitting mailboxes, the droids with his lightsaber. I thought that was hilarious. Coleman Trevor, shout out to him. He embarrassed himself in the end.
Rest in peace.
Yeah, rest in peace.
My favorite is when Kit Fisto pushes over droid C-3PO, battle droid C-3PO, and he get the bug smile.
they kind of did Kit Fisto dirty in these movies.
They did Kit Fisto so dirty.
Yeah.
My also other favorite is Plo Koon's only appearance in Attack of the Clones is when Dooku stops the fighting before the clones show up, and it's just Plo Koon just walking behind Anakin. He's just like this the whole time. He just like hovers behind him.
Yeah.
That's so funny. Yeah, I think seeing the Jedi in action and just like this big battle that just kind of takes place in this very small, Coliseum arena.
I've always thought
madness.
I've always thought that the story behind Mace Windu's lightsaber color has always been super funny about how literally on set Samuel L. Jackson went up to George and was like,
can I have purple?
No, he was like, so with this whole sequence, how am I going to be able to tell which one is me? And George was like, I don't know. And Samuel L. Jackson was like, all right, well, just can you make my lightsaber purple? And George was like, yeah, I guess so. And that's my George Lucas impression, by the way. It's like
that's pretty good. Yeah,
very good.
Like Aqua Teen Hunger Force. But
oh my god,
yeah, I've always thought that story is like. Yeah, such a funny trivia. Like everybody knows that trivia story about how the reason Mace Windu's lightsaber is purple is because Samuel L. Jackson wanted a purple lightsaber. That is the story.
Well, and it's so cool too because like everything we've seen of Mace Windu has just been Samuel L. Jackson talking. Also, I sent this to Jordan Dennis. I still talk to him and hang out with him. But I was texting him, and I don't know why, but especially in Phantom Menace, but in this too, they for some reason just like Yoda and Mace Windu are always the two of the council who always kind of have they're always leading it and whatnot.
They're like in a little clique. It's so funny.
That's essentially what I was like. They've just kind of.
They definitely hang out outside of work.
They like gossip on the side and whatnot. So my point of what I was saying is that Mace Windu has just kind of been this council person. He's only been talking, he's only been kind of giving orders and whatnot, and then he shows up and he's got this purple lightsaber and he beheaded Jango Fett and he's just been ruthless, and everyone's like, oh no, Mace Windu's crazy. That's what we learned.
Speaking of Jango Fett, Alan, what is kind of your reaction to the death of Jango Fett and how Boba reacts and what it kind of does going forward with the saga?
Did he not realize that his jetpack was blown? Because I feel like that's pretty much what killed him. I mean, I'm pretty sure he lost his blaster too, but I don't know. I think Boba having to see that pretty much solidified, like, you see it in Clone Wars. He hates the Jedi at that point. He wants revenge.
That's traumatic too.
Definitely. Well, yeah, I can't imagine. You see,
watching a dude charge your dad, and then his dad's head's over there. And
yeah. You've seen the memes where he picks up the helmet and his head falls out.
That's one of my favorite shots of the movie, though, is Boba holding his head. You always wait for that head to fall out.
Exactly.
There's actually like
a good shot, though.
There's like a video on YouTube of like if Star Wars was rated R, and one of them is Boba picking up the Jango Fett helmet, and just a severed head comes out of it.
Yeah, I always look for it every time it pops off too.
Yeah.
So let's talk about kind of the men of the hour. They're barely even in this movie, and we didn't really talk about them in Camino. They don't do much in Camino, but the clones. First time we really meet the clones and kind of see them in action. Let's just talk about that whole entire sequence, just from when they show up to the Coliseum to literally when Anakin and Obi-Wan get to the lightsaber fight. Alan, what are your thoughts on just meeting the clones right off the bat and how they just kind of just a war breaks out?
They had perfect timing. They couldn't have come in maybe a little earlier. It would have been good, but they came in pretty good time. Their little pod weapons that are on their ships, those are awesome. Where they're just slicing through droids. The green lasers. I thought those were awesome. They were. I like when they're shooting down the fuel cells. Anakin says, "Shoot above the fuel cells."
Oh,
and they shoot out the missiles. They go all over the place and just hit. I'm like, why did I have to do all that?
Do you get thrown off by the CG clones still to this day? Dude, I don't think it's a problem.
In general, I noticed the CGI so much more today. Like going back to Dexter Jetster, I didn't realize how CGI that was until today. I guess as a kid, I didn't really look for it. I was just like, oh, cool, it's an alien, But today, I was like, the whole movie, I was like, dang, dude, like I can really see it right now.
I always think it's funny how in this one the colors on each clone are drastically different to what they mean for the rest of the Clone Wars.
They're just like, this would be a cool color.
Like yellow means captain, I think, and red's like an officer. And you know what? Let's just give them all. Let's give each battalion a color. This is too confusing.
Yeah. For one, I see no excuse as to why they couldn't build a couple of clone trooper uniforms. I don't know why they couldn't have done that. It would have sold so much better, especially in all those scenes, with Cody or with, even on Geonosis, and you have the clones whenever Padme rolls down the sand dune and like the clones approach her. Their movement is just so weirdly video game. I've always thought that the clones. I've always been so on them only because like you never really see a clone do something really awesome in these movies, except for maybe in Revenge of the Sith.
Yeah, see, Revenge of the Sith, they give them cool scenes.
Like killing all the Jedi.
It's
that's a cool scene. Let me tell you,
that is a cool scene. It's a little weird to me how they speak. It's very kind of like Tamara Morrison's lines are just kind of like forced, and it's like it sounded like they only did like one take of him doing it. Just
well, you can tell that like a week before they were supposed to release, they're like, oh crap, we're supposed to get clone lines, aren't we? And then they called in Tim to do his lines real
really
quick.
Just kind of mundane, and
Tim only had like 15 minutes of free time. He was like, all right, let's go do it, and then he just went and did it.
That's hysterical. I think the scene when the dust storm settles in and all the lasers are flying that's one of the best parts too. I think the
visuals are cool. The visuals are super cool with all the clone stuff. But when
you look into it, it's
I just think that maybe even when there's a shot where there's like maybe 2 or 3 clones in it, just put some guys in clone armor, in legitimate practical clone armor. It'll sell so much better. But George has always had this mindset with the prequels of trying to push the envelope with technology and CGI and trying to do amazing things with this technology he has available to him. And it just reminds you that there's sometimes simpler is better.
Yeah. Work smarter, not harder.
Exactly.
This is a quick little anecdote. You talk about that when Padme falls down the little hill when she falls off the ship.
She took a good role, man.
It's the fact that she's not dirty when she gets up, like she's still pristine in her white outfit, which leads me to believe that Geonosis has like non-stick sand. Like
Absolutely.
you can just, it doesn't matter how much you play around. Yeah,
that's actually how they market a planet to get people to visit, is the non-stick sand.
See how that's going.
Non-stick sand.
That's right.
That's funny. Moving on, let's talk about the lightsaber fight with Count Dooku and kind of how each, because there's 3 individual fights, and I think what's really cool is this fight really shows off Dooku's duelist abilities. He's a very, very, very good duelist, and just kind of his sword play with it. And it's funny, you know, when he's talking to Yoda, he's like, it's clear this fight won't be with our power of the Force. And I was like, oh yeah, Dooku, like, did you figure that one for yourself?
When he intercepted
Alan, what are your
lightning?
thoughts? Yeah, right. Alan, what are your thoughts on just kind of Dooku's saber fighting, and especially just this fight in general, and just kind of, you can, you know, just each one between Obi-Wan, Anakin, and Yoda.
So,
what are your thoughts on the fight?
I think he made easy work of Obi-Wan and Anakin. That's pretty safe to say. I gotta say, it lasted about 10 seconds. I loved dual wielding Anakin for the 10 seconds he got it.
I thought that too when he throws in the lightsaber.
So sick.
Yes.
That choreography is really
and the blue
cool.
and green, that just makes it even better that it's 2 different colors. I loved it for like 5 seconds. Then he chopped the green one, I think. I was like, man, that was short lived, but it was awesome.
Yeah, right.
And you can really tell right before Anakin gets his arm chopped off, you can tell that he's a Padawan because he blocks that hit and he's just standing there, you know, and that he makes it so easy for Count Dooku to make easy work of him. And I think this is the number one scene where it shows, like I said before, that Count Dooku didn't want to kill him. You know, he just pushes him over. He's just like, all right, let me get out of here. Like, you know, I don't think
he teaches him a lesson.
Yeah,
really.
Absolutely.
Braydon, what are your thoughts on the fight?
I definitely think that with Christopher Lee being as old as he was when he shot this movie, it is so obvious that it's just some 30-year-old dude, 30-year-old stunt guy with a CG Christopher Lee face doing all of these lightsaber moves. But I always was surprised at how quickly Obi-Wan got out of the fight. Like, he just got knocked out so quickly.
Yeah, he got hit twice, and Dooku was like, all right, you're done.
Yeah.
You think he was playing with Anakin a little bit, letting him last as long as he did?
Yeah, I don't know, but I think that kind of it kind of says something, because even in Revenge of the Sith, we see him take out Obi-Wan a little earlier than Anakin. So Anakin has always been the one to, you know, take on Dooku in full force, while Kenobi is just kind of knocked out in the corner. But yeah, and then, you know, when Yoda comes up, I mean, that's just something that you dream about when you're a kid, is Yoda just wrecking shop with a lightsaber. At first you don't even know if Yoda's going to pull out the lightsaber, because you kind of see him just like absorb this force lightning and, you know, throw it away. And I love that line that you talked about, Jackson, about how they start doing all this force stuff to each other, and Dooku just like, it seems as if our powers are too well matched with the Force, and now we shall see how we test against each other with a lightsaber. That was a paraphrase line.
I was going to say it was a little bit too much words there.
That was a good Dooku voice.
Yeah, but I just think that they did not need that line. He did not need to say that. He could have just pulled out his lightsaber, then Yoda pulls out his lightsaber, and then they go at it. They didn't need Dooku to say that. It's a fun line, but I still think it was needed to tell the story. But I just think the way that Yoda is so acrobatic in this way of fighting, and how quick he is with all of his moves, because he knows he has to be if he doesn't want to be sliced in half immediately. So I've always thought that Yoda's...
And Dooku holds his own, too.
Yeah, absolutely. And I always thought that Yoda's fighting style has always been super interesting to me, because it's not a typical... you know,
nobody else jumps
emotionally
around like
driven Star Wars battle. It's like this weird mixture of like this, like acrobats and combat. It's so cool. It's so cool.
It's so quick. It's so different from what we've seen just as a lightsaber fight. Well, cool. Let's get on to the last point here. Let's talk about how just kinds of at the end of this movie, it kind of splits between the Republic finalizing that they're going to be going to war and using this clone army. And then on the opposite side, we see Anakin and Padme getting married, and they, them solidifying that they are going to be taking this pretty difficult journey ahead of them, but they've decided to do it together. Alan, what are your thoughts on just kind of the closing of this movie and how it wraps itself up?
I think this is a pretty simple answer. I think it feeds well into the next movie. You're finally seeing that Anakin's got another thing to attach to, which is absolutely not what he needs at this point. So kind of like you said, I think it kind of closes out well to Obi-Wan kind of finally realizing what Anakin could do, because I guess I'm going to call it the clone dropship, I think it is. Whenever they're flying first chasing Dooku, I think that's the first time you actually hear Obi-Wan kind of compliment Anakin. When he's saying shoot the fuel cells, he's like, hey, like, good call, man. Like, that's the first positive thing I've heard in the movie. So I think that leads well to the next, obviously the Clone Wars, and then, you get to see their relationship develop.
Braydon, what about you? What are your thoughts on the closing of this movie?
I think that this movie has a brilliant ending of, how 3PO kind of, is it 3PO that marries Anakin and Padme?
No, he's there. He and R2 are just to the side.
But I just think that it's great that their wedding party was C-3PO and R2-D2. I think it's so great. But yeah, with the ending and, I think they kind of, I don't want to say they missed out, but I think that the way they left off with the relationship between Anakin and Obi-Wan, and where Anakin is here, and how much room of story you have to tell. And I'm glad they kind of went really deep into it with Clone Wars. But I was just surprised at how far in the future they jumped with Revenge of the Sith. Because there's so many adventures to tell. Like I could have easily, I could have easily enjoyed 2 more movies after this before we go to the original trilogy. But I think that the ending of this really wraps it up, and it really kind of pushes you into the unknown of like, okay, Anakin has gone through his adolescence. He's defied the Jedi Order by marrying Padme. Okay, where do we go from here? And I think that this movie, the ending of this movie, raises a really good question at the end of, okay, what now? Because I think that with the Phantom Menace, we end it and we're like, okay, that was it. That was the movie. Good job. But with this, we're like, oh crap, Anakin's doing some stuff that we wouldn't expect, and you kind of have to, you kind of have to, what's the word I'm thinking of? You kind of have to speculate how the gap will be bridged from Anakin to Vader in just one movie, the next movie, because we still have so much story to tell. But yeah.
Well, cool. Well, that was just kind of the general talk. Let's move on to our next little bit, which is just quotes. This movie has its quotes are a little different because I think it's funny how in Phantom Menace, its dialogue tried everything to be a big inspirational quote. And I especially too, I think introduced in meeting a quote unquote Jedi Master Obi-Wan. We get a lot of some pretty classic Obi-Wan quips in this. There's some pretty good ones that I could probably talk about. I think when it comes to actually like good written lines in this, Simple Man just making its way in the universe, probably
great line.
That's such a beautifully written, just kind of, to meet this character and to see what he has to say. And it's that I don't care. That's so fun. Alan, what are some of your favorite quotes from this movie?
So I think this movie has a lot of really funny quotes. One that I caught early was whenever they're first kind of briefing when they get to Naboo, what their plan is with Padme and Anakin. He's trying to interject, or they're like, "What do you think, Master Jedi?" And she's like, "Oh, he's not a Jedi yet. He's just a Padawan." I was like, "Man, you had to do my man dirty like that."
You're just asking him to murder younglings when you say that.
Yeah, absolutely. You just feeding right into it.
Oh, I remember. And Anakin steps in too. He's like, hey, well, hold on.
Yeah.
Well, excuse me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I thought that was funny. She can't do that. Shoot her or something. That's a great one. The one we were talking about just a minute ago about Count Dooku. Like, I don't think we can settle this with our Force abilities. Okay, yeah, I think we pretty much could have figured that one out. But.
I think the line is something along the lines of, we can't compete with our knowledge of the Force, but with our skill with a lightsaber, or something like that.
It sounded super poetic.
Yeah.
Braydon, what are some of your favorite quotes?
I love the Obi-Wan quote when they're in that right outside that nightclub on Coruscant, and he's giving Anakin back his lightsaber, and he says, "This weapon is your life." And I think that line kind of engraves itself into Anakin of like, oh crap, like whenever he ends up losing his lightsaber again, he's like, Obi-Wan's gonna kill me.
Not again.
Yeah. And then there's this really great quote in that nightclub when they're walking in, and they're kind of having some banter back and forth, and he says, why do I get the feeling that you're going to be the death of me?
I was going to talk about
that. It might be because he's absolutely going to be the death
master.
of you. He's like, why would you say that, Master? Don't say that.
You're the closest thing I have to a father.
Yeah, and then you get this, with Anakin and Padme, you get this really cringy line that I hate it so much, but I know that the intentions with George were good. But the line is, "Oh, I'd be much too frightened to tease a senator." Shut up, man! Shut up! I hate that line.
I love. You call this a diplomatic solution? No, I call it aggressive persuasions, negotiations.
Yeah, what's aggressive negotiations? Well, negotiations with a lightsaber. In that same scene that we're talking, like that weird dinner scene. This is, I think, the worst line in the movie, and I'm gonna paraphrase. Not really I'm gonna read it right here. If Master Obi-Wan caught me doing this, he'd be very grumpy. Whenever he's like slicing the pear, I'm like, ooh.
Yeah, the CG pear.
Yeah, the spooky pear is gonna end Anakin's Jedi career.
That's one of my favorite robot chicken gags. Is when he's force pushing the pear and Padme knocks it out of the air. Rejected.
Ooh, rejected.
Too funny.
So you guys aren't gonna name any Dexter Jester quotes? Or are we just gonna act like that didn't happen?
Obi-Wan. Yeah.
That's basically.
What do you know?
Oh, buddy. Hey. That's basically all he says.
Yeah, right. That is really all he says.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's some fun quotes in this one that I think are more kind of meme-ish rather than
a lot of meme
effective.
Quotes.
And yeah,
I really liked in the opening that chase that they have on Coruscant. How Obi-Wan's he's like, I don't hate flying. I just what you're doing is suicide. And then later on when he's following Jango Fett, he's like, I hate flying.
Gets chased by when he gets shot at. Yeah. I think good job is probably one of my favorites. That interaction's too good for me. Or in the chase when it's Anakin and Obi-Wan in their speeder flyer thing, and Anakin's like, I had her, like I had it under control, and Obi-Wan goes, only in your mind, my very young Padawan.
More yes,
I'm sure you did. Yeah, those are some fun ones to me. Obi-Wan's just sassy little remarks in it. His visible movie. Confusion in Camino is very funny to me.
Yeah. We've also got hey, I want to buy some death sticks.
Yeah, right. You don't want to buy me you don't want to sell me death sticks.
Yeah. And then a very, probably the most famous line from this movie we didn't talk about. I don't like sand.
Mm-hmm.
Of course,
I didn't want to talk about it.
And irritating. It gets everywhere.
I killed them. I killed all of them.
Oh, I wanted to bring up at the end of that when he's screaming, throwing stuff. I think that's the first time you hear the Vader theme, and I was like, man, that kind of gave me goosebumps.
Oh yeah,
the
when
Imperial March,
he starts crying. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Alan? What are some of your favorite characters just from this one? What characters stand out to you most?
Count Dooku.
We'll talk about stand-up.
Count Dooku.
Really?
We talked about it a little bit already, but he just played that part so well. He was menacing, but at the same time, he was reluctant, and I thought, Christopher Lee played that really well, and it,
I was gonna.
He had to be there,
Yeah. I was gonna say, is he also your standout performance? Is he someone just?
I'd say Anakin's still my standout performance. He, really, absolutely. He played that whole simping for Padme part real well, I thought. and Hayden
there's also like a bizarre nuance to Hayden's performance in this movie that I can't put my finger on it, but there's something that is so Anakin about his performance.
Simps for senators.
Simps for senators.
Braydon, who stood out to you in this movie? What is a performance and character that stood out to you?
So I think a lot of you who listen to this podcast know that I think my favorite character in this movie is Dexter Jettster, for no other reason than everybody else hates him. So somebody has to love that man. So I love Dexter.
Because he's harboring Yaddle in the back.
Yeah. Oh, that's right. We did have our own little lore that we came up with, but
use that clip right there as your preview for this.
Yeah, that's right. I think a lot of people forget that Jar Jar is in this movie. And this is kind of the beginning of Jar Jar's fall. Of whenever Padme leaves, she appoints Jar Jar to her spot in the Senate. And that's a no bueno, because we all know what Jar Jar ends up doing for the galaxy in appointing emergency powers to Palpatine. So that's no good. And then, speaking of Palpatine, we get this... I love Palpatine in this movie because we get this great kind of origin story of him and Anakin's relationship and how he's beginning to groom Anakin, of how excited he is that Anakin's in the Jedi Order and all this kind of stuff, and that when you're an audience member first watching this, you're like, that's a little creepy. And then you got these obscure characters like Poggle the Lesser and Jocasta Nu. I love her arc in Clone Wars.
She's real sassy in this movie too.
Yeah. And I've always had a weird fascination with Poggle the Lesser. One, because his name is Poggle the Lesser. I mean,
yeah,
come on, that's so title. Weird.
I was like the Techno Union. I was
the Techno Union. Cool.
Yeah, the guy with the knobs.
Yeah. He looks like he looks like something out of like Jimmy Neutron.
Yeah.
Like what animators imagine like an alien to be. But yeah, I think just like those, whenever I think of characters like from prequels especially, I always think of like the obscure background characters that no one ever gives attention to, that I'm like, man, I love this guy. like Dex and Jocasta Nu and all those kind of characters. So
yeah.
But if we're talking main cast, I do love Anakin, and of course being who he is, and being the whiny teenager that we kind of know him to be. And I think that even Obi-Wan's performance is super nuanced in this, and it's he has such a drive to do what is right in this movie, and whenever he fails, it kind of gets the best of him. And then lastly, Christopher Lee can do no wrong. He is just a master at acting, and his performance is it's so deep in this movie, and it's almost like this is the role he never got when he was in his prime. So he's like, you know what, screw it, let's do it. I've always loved that about Dooku and Christopher Lee. So yeah.
I know for me, it's kind of my standout performance. It's not my favorite character of the movie is Obi-Wan's, just his investigation. I think it's Obi-Wan. I've got the man's lightsaber tattooed on me. But it's Tamara Morrison. And it's him specifically as Django. I think his performance as Django is really cool, because especially seeing how in the next movie he plays, the clones, and even now he's playing Boba Fett. He's each different iteration he's been able to kind of give his own performance on, and it's cool seeing that origin and what choices he made as an actor to kind of give us this little one-off character that we can build more on. So I think Tem did a fantastic job, and I think this movie really, I think this movie is an awesome introduction for him, especially to just have him in a Star Wars movie before he even made it bigger in his area. So
yeah,
moving on, we're going to kind of get through these last little ones really quickly. Sorry, one sec. Oh, excuse me, I have heartburn. This movie's themes aren't too in your face as kind of the other ones. The rest is more. This movie is mainly focused on story progression. So I think with the themes that we got, they're themes that aren't necessarily the ones you would expect. I don't think they're kind of the main point of the movie. Alan, what do you think some themes of this movie are?
I think we talked about it earlier. The just the investigative stuff. I don't know if you guys have played Fallout, but like Fallout 4 specifically, Nick Valentine, that's his name, right?
Yeah.
It kind of reminds me of that to an extent, just because I know he's not like hired as an investigator, but I guess that's like a Jedi skill that they have now. You know, he's literally just, he's on his own. He's just going step by step. He's getting little clues, and he just knows Dexter is the guy to go to. And he goes from there. And I think it's really cool that it just evolves from there.
Do you pick up any like life lessons from this movie that is there anything you noticed in this movie that you're like, wow, that's kind of a powerful statement, that's kind of a powerful moment?
What you said about Padme towards the beginning of the movie, how our I don't know the exact quote, but basically our mentors kind of you said it earlier, what was it? It was they basically
kind of our mentors, they have a way of seeing more of our faults than we would like.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's a good one because, you know, she's right. You know, you don't always want to hear what you're doing wrong, but sometimes that's what you need.
Yeah, exactly.
To get to the next step of where you're trying to be.
And I think that is a really great standout theme of this movie is, you know, failure and learning from that failure. I mean, not as prominent with things like The Last Jedi and things like The Rise of Skywalker, but we really get Anakin being tested like he hasn't before. I mean, he's always been in these crazy situations with Obi-Wan and like on these little adventures, but I don't think that he's really been in such a life kind of state of the galaxy threatening situation as he is in this movie beforehand. So I think that's a pretty good theme. And I also think another thing we always bring up is kind of destiny and fate. And I think that Anakin kind of sees him and Padme's relationship as fate because of how they met and, you know, how he hasn't stopped thinking about her because he knows they're destined to be together. And I think that's really powerful, but you know, the Jedi do not like that and they don't want Anakin to be like that. And that gives Anakin this conflict that I think eventually draws him towards the dark side because he cares more about Padme and her living than the good of the galaxy. So yeah, I've always thought that this movie in general, theme wise, is a good bridging point from Anakin's where Anakin's head is at right now and where Anakin ends up in Revenge of the Sith.
Yeah.
About you, Jackson?
Piggybacking off of that, I say this is kind of specifically towards Anakin, but Anakin's biggest struggle in this is that he's kind of been raised that he's different. He's this prodigy. He's the chosen one. And when Anakin runs into problems that are very common, especially for somebody his age. I mean, hell, I remember being 19 years old. I was angsty and angry and didn't want to take responsibility for any of the actions that I caused. But I also knew and was told at that age too that that's normal. That's just part of growing up. You want everyone to understand you, and you want to be seen as this big adult. And the reality is you may not be. Most people aren't at that age. Anakin's a bit of a different situation, but he's also not. He's still someone who's just very much learning, and him himself he gets very angry about that. So the theme I'm saying is that it's all normal. It's just part of growing up. It's just part of becoming a person and, you know, transitioning into the adult that you are. And that's kind of Anakin's holdback in this, is that no one really told him that. No one told him that these feelings are okay. And it sucks even more that he's a Jedi, that he has to suppress and hide those.
Well, he even says that, like, he's trying to convince Padme that, like, him loving her is okay. And he's saying, like, yeah, attachment's forbidden, and, you know, getting married and all that kind of stuff is forbidden, but you know, a little bit of compassion never hurt anybody.
Right
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's themes. Let's talk about the music of this movie, because this movie It's got some bangers in it too.
Yeah.
I listen to the love theme / the Republic March. That's on my liked music on Spotify, so that's part of my kind of routine from this movie. Alan, what are some songs that stick out, and what you may not know what the song is? What moment in a movie where the music stuck out to you?
So I love the I don't know if it's called the Padme theme, but whenever they're right after, I want to say it's right after the sand pickup line that he uses. I hate sand. I feel like
you're thinking of Across the Stars. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So I definitely don't know the names like you guys, but it still stuck out to me. And I kind of touched on it earlier. Again, I don't know if it's called the Vader theme. You could correct me, but
Imperial March.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah. See, when Anakin's talking about killing that's when you first really see like the evil come out of him, and that was pretty, that really hits because you're like, damn, like, and Padme, she's got that look. She's like, damn, like, he just killed a bunch of people, maybe not people, but, essentially people. And I thought that Vader theme really stuck out to me. That one really gave me some goosebumps when I was watching it earlier today.
Braydon, what about you? What are some music scenes and moments that stick out?
I think John Williams was like, y'all know I had to bring Duel of the Fates back.
Yeah, right.
Because the response to Duel of the Fates was so positive coming out of the Phantom Menace.
Good. Got to use it twice.
Good. And the way that he kind of juxtaposes Duel of the Fates in the Phantom Menace kind of being with this, battle of Jedi and Sith and like the fate of this young boy into this young boy turned kind of Jedi Padawan, enraged and kind of, he's not in control of himself. And that's when the Duel of the Fates kicks in, because it's just such a powerful theme. And like Alan said, Across the Stars is such a powerful theme too. And it's just such a good theme. It kind of, it reminds me of my feelings towards like, Leia's theme and the Rey theme. It's just like this beautiful musical moment that holds so much emotional weight that I've always loved.
Yeah. Well, cool. Well, I think overall, this is a kind of a hectic movie, but it's got a lot and it introduces a lot. And I think it's a good movie to showcase characters before they're necessarily important. Just to at least give us that backstory and what it is. Alan, do you have any other thoughts? Anything you want to talk about?
Like I said before, I think it's just a really good bridge between the first and third movies. They could have definitely done a worse job. Cough, cough, episode 8.
Boo!
Yeah, that's pretty much all I got, though.
Just wait until we get to the Last Jedi episode. I will convince you to love that movie. But
it's going to be a 4-hour episode.
I'm very open to you changing my mind, but
just wait. But yeah, I think that there's a couple things we didn't talk about. They're like small things, but that moment when Jar Jar looks into the camera, like kind of like a wink, wink. There's like a frame where Jar Jar looks into the camera and winks. We're like, okay, George, I know what you're doing there. And then in that, go ahead, Jackson.
Why does Anakin's hair look like that? Like not like the braid, but
the
like
90s
why it's the top of his hair. It just looks fuzzy. Like it just looks.
I think it's because they were going after the Obi-Wan look from Phantom Menace.
That's fair. Yeah, it's kind of just the
young
Hayden
Christensen's
Padawan
hair. It's a little more like wavy and curly, so it like didn't work as well as the Obi-Wan hair did. And then we also get, in the nightclub sequence, we get cameos from Ahmed Best and Katie Lucas and Anthony Daniels, like in person. I always thought that was really cool.
Oh, that's cool.
But, overall, I think that this is the weakest and messiest Star Wars movie in the most positive way. I still think this is a great Star Wars movie, but I think of all of them, this is the weakest and messiest. And I think that this is me and Jackson were kind of talking about this earlier about how with this movie, I can really only watch it once in a while. Because before this recent watch, I watched it like a month ago. And already watching it, I was like, all right, come on, let's get going. I'm kind of bored. Let's go. But yeah, I think that overall, I think this is a solid entry into the Skywalker saga. And, there's so many powerful moments and a lot of moments that speak to just the entire saga itself. And there's so many memorable moments and quotes out of this movie that I love so much. So, there's just so many movies and so many moments in other films that I like more than this one. But I think this is a solid film, and I like it a lot.
Well, groovy. Alan, thank you so much for coming and hanging out with us and chatting with us. I can't express how awesome it is that, you reached out and were able to, ask us to join. We'd love that. We've got people listening and able to join. Alan, where can they find you on social media so people can give you a follow?
Twitter and Instagram, you can find me at Champagne Alzy. It's Champagne and then ALZY.
Groovy. You can find us at Through Imperial Eyes on just kind of our normal, that's Instagram and Facebook. Our Twitter is at Imperial Eyes Pod, and then you can search us on YouTube, Anchor, anywhere you get your podcasts. You can find me personally on Twitter at Quackson Scalene, that's QUACKSON, Scalene like the triangle, and then my photography Instagram is at Deleen_photography, Deleen spelled DALEEN. Braydon, what about you? What are your socials?
You can find me on Instagram at braydonleadbetter and on Twitter at braydathlon.
And guys, don't forget to leave a review, leave a like in the comments, subscribe to the channel. It'll be a great awesome
time. Leave that rating and review, please.
No, but please leave us a review to ask, tell us how we're doing. We'd love to see feedback, and that definitely just helps us out and, getting that feedback and seeing what people's thoughts are. And don't be afraid to send in questions. You can send Don't be shy.
Don't be shy.
It'll be fun.
Send us that
message.
out.
Don't be scared. Yeah, we'll post it on Twitter every once in a while, but it's your responsibility too to send us something if you got something sneaking on your mind.
It is your civil duty listening to this podcast to send us a question every week.
We didn't talk about quotes, but an offhand one is how Palpatine says "I love democracy" in his speech.
I love democracy.
Yeah, but that's kind of all. You can tune into our main show, which comes out on Thursdays, and this will come out, on Saturdays. And tune in next week we just have a news special or news episode next time, and then after that, our Imperial Cantina will be doing Revenge of the Sith, which is in my top 3 for Star Wars. So I'm excited for it. You guys got anything else?
No, that's it. Ooba.
All right, guys. Well, thanks for hanging. Thanks for talking. And as always, may the Force be with you.
And also with you.